level. So starting with HMP shunt. So okay, so now what is HMP shunt? This is hexose monophosphate pathway. Okay, now this is hexose monophosphate pathway, that is HMP, and shunt is like it is a pathway. So it is also known as pentose phosphate pathway or 6-phosphogluconate pathway. So these are different terminologies of the same pathway, that is hexose monophosphate pathway or pentose phosphate pathway, or also known as 6-phosphogluconate pathway. So now this pathway again it occurs in the cytosol itself, and this is utilized when glycolysis or TCA doesn't undergo, and whatever the glucose is there, that is being utilized for this HMP shunt. Or you can say it is an alternative pathway to glycolysis as well as TCA cycle. For oxidation of glucose, particularly it is oxidation of glucose, and also some of the other monosaccharide units are also utilized to undergo specific oxidation using this HMP pathway. Okay. So this is HMP shunt is a pathway that is an alternative to glycolysis and TCA for oxidation of glucose. Also, it is utilized for oxidation of other monosaccharides, specifically 5 carbon containing monosaccharide units. Okay, so this is a pathway that utilizes 5 carbon containing this monosaccharide units and undergoes oxidation. Also, it is utilized for oxidation of glucose. So this HMP pathway involves two phases. One is oxidative phase and another is non-oxidative phase. So what happens in oxidative phase? Whatever the starting materials are there, they will get oxidized, and there must be a reductant as well. So here NADPH will come into account, not NAD plus. Now here NADP, that is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. Now, this is a compound that will carry out reduction, that will undergo reduction to form NADPH. Okay, here oxidation of the starting materials and reduction of NADP, that is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. So now the role of this nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate is very, very important, and the reduced form is utilized in many of the other processes in the body. So we will see how what is the importance of this NADPH as well. Okay, so here majorly two phases, oxidative and non-oxidative phases. In oxidative phase, oxidation of the starting material takes place, while in non-oxidative phase, whatever the products are obtained during the, you can say whatever the intermediates are obtained, they undergo different series of reactions, and also they undergo a transfer of carbon from one compound to another compound, resulting in formation of two different products. In case of non-oxidative, there is no oxidation, just there is a transfer of carbon atoms between the intermediary compounds. That is the difference between these oxidative and non-oxidative phases. And in this case, no ATP is consumed or synthesized directly. Okay, in this case, no ATP is consumed or synthesized directly, and the end products of these HMP shunt is carbon dioxide and NADPH molecules. Okay, so for each glucose 6-phosphate generated, now whenever glucose is oxidized, it first gets converted into glucose 6-phosphate itself. So now these glucose 6-phosphate undergo a different set of series of oxidation and non-oxidative combinedly, that is nothing but the HMP shunt, resulting in synthesis of carbon dioxide and 2 molecules of NADPH. For each glucose 6-phosphate, there will be 1 carbon dioxide molecule and 2 NADPH molecules. Understood? Now coming to the pathway. Now you can see in the right hand side, this is the first initial steps, and on the left hand side, that is the secondary steps taken. Okay, so now coming towards this glucose 6-phosphate that is obtained when glucose undergoes conversion to glucose 6-phosphate, in presence of which is the enzyme that is responsible for conversion of glucose to glucose 6-phosphate? Yes? Hexokinase, very good. Also known as, or hexokinase or
Glucokinase.
very good. Hexokinase or glucokinase. In presence of what? In presence of Magnesium also, again, there is another important molecule that is being utilized for conversion of glucose to glucose 6 phosphate, ATP. Very good. It's a ATP, right? So ATP donates its phosphate bond, and those phosphate bonds are attached to now glucose 6 phosphate. Okay, so this is how glucose 6 phosphate is now synthesized. Now these glucose 6 phosphate doesn't undergo glycolysis. Now they are diverted from the glycolysis and they undergo HMP shunt. So how? So in presence of enzyme glucose 6 phosphate dehydrogenase. You can see glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. So there is dehydrogenation taking place in this. You can see in the very first position, there is a dehydrogenation. Now these hydrogen molecules are captured by NAD plus, not NADP plus. It's not NAD plus, it's NADP plus. That is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. Okay, now whenever these capture hydrogens, they undergo reduction, resulting in synthesis of NADPH and H plus ion. Similarly, we had seen for NAD plus as well. When it undergoes reduction, it forms NADH and H plus ions. So this also requires magnesium ions as cofactor. This enzyme, that is glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase, requires magnesium ions as a cofactor. Now, this results in synthesis of 6-phosphogluconolactone. This is very important. 6-phosphogluconolactone. Now, these 6-phosphogluconolactone undergo hydrolysis in presence of enzyme gluconolactone hydrolase. Means water is added and here hydrolysis takes place. You can see the bond, whatever this is O, the carbon and oxygen bonds, these are broken and COH and COO is formed. That is carboxyl group as well as COH is been formed. So it undergoes hydrolysis to form 6-phosphogluconate. From gluconolactone, it forms gluconate. Okay. Then after 6-phosphogluconate, it undergoes again second series of oxidation reaction in presence of enzyme phosphogluconate dehydrogenase. Again, dehydrogenase, that is, it removes it removes hydrogen atoms. So, resulting in the synthesis of ribulose 5-phosphate. You can see the first three steps, there is 6 carbon atoms, but suddenly there is formation of 5 carbon atom along with removal of carbon dioxide and removal of hydrogens. So, now these hydrogens are accepted by NAD+. This undergoes reduction to NADPH. So, these first 4 pathways results in oxidative phase of HMP shunt, wherein 2 reactions are involved in oxidative metabolism. So first, glucose 6-phosphate undergoes oxidation, and secondly, 6-phosphogluconate undergoes oxidation along with removal of carbon dioxide molecule, resulting in synthesis of ribulose 5-phosphate. Ribose 5-phosphate undergoes reaction utilizing two different enzymes. One is epimerase and one is isomerase. You can see the structure of these two different compounds. Here, this is ribulose 5-phosphate. Now, these ribulose 5-phosphate are getting converted into xylulose 5-phosphate and ribose 5-phosphate. See, ribulose to ribose and xylulose. Okay, you can see the difference in the structures between ribulose and ribose. There is only shift of the carboxyl group from second position to the first position. You can see in ribulose, it is present at second position, while in case of ribose, it is present at the first position. Hence, these are now isomers. So, the enzyme responsible is isomerase, while in case of epimers, you can see the third carbon that is adjacent to the carbonylic group. You can see this is COH and H. While in this case, the hydroxyl group is present on the right hand side. In case of ribulose, it is present on right hand side, while in case of xylulose, it is present on the left hand side. Right? So this difference, that is the carbon atoms or the isomers, which differ only in the arrangement at single carbon atom. The isomers that differ in arrangement of atoms or groups at only single carbon atom are known as epimers. Okay, isomers are having same structural, sorry, they are having same molecular formula, but the structural formula is same. You can see the carboxyl group is present on the second position, but in this case, that is ribose 5-phosphate, the carboxyl group is present on the first position. But if you see the difference between ribulose and xylulose, there is only shift of hydroxyl group on the same carbon, but it is on right hand side and this is on left hand side. Hence, these both are known as epimers. Okay, and the enzyme responsible for synthesis of this xylulose 5-phosphate is known as epimerase, and for ribose 5-phosphate it is known as isomerase. Any doubt? Yes, any doubt? Understood this difference? What is epimerase and what is isomerase? Yeah, fine. So now coming to, now here also you can see the 5-carbon compound retained its 5 carbons. Okay. So now these 5 carbon compound, now here comes the interesting step. Now from ribulose 5-phosphate, all the compounds whatever are synthesized comes in non-oxidative phase. Okay. So these come in non-oxidative phase. So now here comes the interesting part. So you can see there is a xylulose 5-phosphate and ribose 5-phosphate. Whatever these cellulose and ribose 5-phosphate are synthesized, now they will combine. Okay, now they will combine and they will form a different set of products in presence of enzyme transketolase. Now these transketolase will utilize TPP, that is thiamine pyrophosphate, that is a coenzyme. Right, now these xylulose and ribose will combine in presence of transketolase utilizing TPP as a coenzyme. This will result in the synthesis of pseudoheptulose 7-phosphate as well as glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So now you can see here is 5-membered and 5-membered. This becomes 10 carbons, and in the products also you can see 7 carbon and 3 carbon, that is 10 carbons. So overall there is a 10 carbon compound itself, but the structures of these 10 carbon compounds are totally different. So xylulose as well as ribose 5,5, they will combine, they will help in transfer of carbon atoms between each other. That will result in the synthesis of pseudoheptulose 7 carbon and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, that is 3 carbon. So overall reaction will be that is only 10 carbons are being synthesized, or you can say those 10 carbons are regained. Now these pseudoheptulose and glyceraldehyde, they will react in presence of enzymes transaldolase. Okay, because this will react in presence of enzyme transaldolase, resulting in the synthesis of erythrose 4-phosphate and fructose 6-phosphate. Now this fructose is a 6-carbon compound and erythrose is a 4-carbon compound. Okay, so resultant is again 10 carbon compounds. So from xylulose 5,5, xylulose and ribose. Then pseudoheptulose 7 and glyceraldehyde 3. So again 10 carbon, again in presence of enzyme transaldolase, erythrose and fructose, that is 6 and 4. So overall 10 carbons are again regenerated. Okay, so this is how different takes place. Now the last step includes, now whatever this xylulose 5-phosphate is there. Okay, so again this xylulose 5-phosphate will be utilized and will react with erythrose phosphate. So here 5-carbon compound and here 4-carbon compound. Okay, so these both will interact in presence of enzyme transketolase. Again transketolase in presence of thiamine pyrophosphate itself. Okay, so xylulose undergoes 2 reactions. One is it will react with ribose 5-phosphate. Other is it will react with erythrose 4-phosphate. Okay, so now when it reacts with erythrose 4-phosphate in presence of enzyme transketolase in along with TPPS coenzyme, it will result in synthesis of fructose 6-phosphate and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. You can see 6 plus 3, 9. So 5 and 4, it was 9 initially, again 6 plus 3, 9 is obtained. Now these glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, remember what is the, in which pathway it was intermediate? If you remember, in which pathway it was in intermediate?
Glucolysis.
Glycolysis.
Oh, it was an intermediate of glycolysis. Now these glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate molecules are diverted back to the glycolytic pathway. So first, this glucose 6-phosphate is diverted from the glycolytic pathway, and it is made to undergo HMP shunt. Now, whatever the product is obtained, that is glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate as well as fructose 6-phosphate. Okay, now these are the intermediates of glycolysis, and also in case of gluconeogenesis you had seen, right? So these both will be utilized. Either they may go glycolysis or they may undergo gluconeogenesis depending on glucose requirement of the body. So they may undergo glycolysis if glucose is not required, and they may undergo gluconeogenesis if glucose is required by the body. So here, whatever the end products are obtained, they will be diverted to two different pathways, glycolysis and gluconeogenesis, depending on the glucose concentrations required by the body. Okay, understood? And you can see this is a overall pathway. I had just without the structures it is. So you can see now here starting 6 glucose molecules are utilized. 6 glucose phosphates are utilized, that is converted into 6 molecules of 6-phosphogluconolactone, and similarly up to ribulose 5-phosphate. All the six molecules are retained. Now here ribulose phosphate undergoes separation, or you can say splitting, that is a better terminology, splitting into 2 molecules of ribose 5-phosphate and 4 molecules of xylulose, because xylulose undergoes twice reaction, one with erythrose and one with ribose. Hence 4 molecules of xylulose are synthesized and 2 molecules of ribose are synthesized. Out of these 4 molecules of xylulose, 2 are utilized for reaction with ribose and resulting in synthesis of 2 7-carbon and 2 3-carbon compound. Now these both compounds undergo reaction resulting in 2 molecules of 4-carbon compound and 2 molecules of 6-carbon compound. So overall 10 carbon compounds are regenerated. And also whatever the erythrose phosphate is formed, those 2 molecules will react with the remaining 2 molecules of xylulose. Okay, so here 4 molecules are synthesized, out of which 2 is already utilized and remaining 2 are utilized to react with erythrose phosphate, resulting in synthesis of 2 molecules of 6-carbon compound and 2 molecules of 3-carbon compound. Now these glyceraldehyde, either they will get converted into fructose 6-phosphate and leads to synthesis of glucose, that is gluconeogenesis, or they will be utilized for glycolytic pathways, that is degradation of glucose. Understood regarding how this HMP shunt is being carried out and how those different molecules are converted into almost similar carbon containing compounds. Okay, now coming to what is the significance of why it is required. Now these hexoses are converted into 5-carbon compound. We had seen glucose 6-phosphate getting converted into ribose 5-phosphate. Right, now these pentoses or its derivatives are utilized for synthesis of RNA and DNA. We are very familiar, these RNA and DNA are in requirement of these ribose phosphates in order to produce nucleosides and nucleotides, right? So for this reason, this HMP shunt is being carried out in the body such that RNA and DNA molecules are continuously synthesized utilizing these ribose phosphate molecules. And also many nucleotides such as ATP, NAD+, FAD and coenzymes are also synthesized by utilizing the same ribose 5-phosphate, because also ATP, you know, it is a basics of this RNA and DNA. It is a basic nucleus of this RNA and DNA, and also it is a storage form of energy in the body. Similarly, this NAD plus is, you know, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. So again, a sugar molecule is required. This ribose 5-phosphate. In FAD also it is required, and in coenzyme A, this is a constituent. This ribose 5-phosphate is a constituent of this coenzyme A molecule. Hence, whatever the hexoses are being converted into pentoses, now these pentoses are utilized for synthesis of genetic materials as well as different cofactors, you can say. This is ATP, that is energy source, as well as NAD plus FAD and coenzyme A. And also it provides this pathway. We had seen that it provides 6 molecules of NADPH from glucose 6-phosphate. You can see in this reaction. First 6 molecules and as well as second 6 molecules. So overall 12 molecules of NADPH is synthesized from 6 molecules of glucose. Okay, so from 6 molecules you get 12 molecules of NADPH. So a large amount of NADPH. That is a major portion of NADPH is being synthesized from this HMP shunt, and now these NADPH molecules function as biochemical reductant. This is very important. I will define what is the role of this NADPH in the later slides. Okay. So now this also provides mechanism for the metabolism of 5-carbon sugar compound. Already I said in the diet we not only consume glucose but also other carbohydrates like oligosaccharides and polysaccharides. And also in monosaccharides there are different classifications. So most of those carbohydrates are utilized in the diet, and those are getting degraded with the help of this HMP shunt. Glucose, if it is a major constituent, then it undergoes glycolysis. If other carbohydrates are present, strong inhibitor in this reaction. Yes, it will inhibit when, as we know, this is a reversible reaction. Sorry, it is an irreversible reaction. Okay. Now, glucose 6-phosphate to 6-phosphogluconate. It is an irreversible reaction. So, when the concentrations of this 6-phosphogluconate increases, then this NADPH will try to inhibit this first pathway itself. So, it can act as an inhibitor of this pathway itself. It is a self-regulatory mechanism, you can say, or you can also say it as a feedback regulation. Meaning, whatever the NADPH is being synthesized will try to inhibit conversion of glucose 6-phosphate to 6-phosphogluconate until and unless the concentration of this will decrease. Okay, when the concentration will decrease, again the conversion will be facilitated. Because the concentration of the 6-phosphogluconate is high, only under such conditions this NADPH will try to inhibit this pathway, or else it will go on smoothly. Okay, fine. Yeah. So now this is the significance. One is it is utilized for synthesis of ribose 5-phosphate. Now these ribose 5-phosphate molecules are utilized for synthesis of different genetic materials as well as including ATP, NAD+, FAD and coenzyme. Okay, and the second important is it is a major source of synthesis of NADPH. Now this NADPH is very important biochemical reductant. And the third important significance is it is important mechanism, or you can say important pathway for degradation of 5-carbon sugars obtained from the diet. Okay, so this is regarding significance of HMP shunt. Now coming to what is the importance of NADPH. So you can see on the right hand side, this is the structure of NADPH. You can see there is a phosphate group being attached. If this phosphate group is not there, then it is known as NAD+. Okay, NAD+, that is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. If this phosphate is added, then it becomes dinucleotide phosphate. Okay. Now this NADPH is required for biosynthesis of fatty acids and steroids. Reductive biosynthesis means whatever the precursors that are utilized for synthesis of fatty acids and steroids, they undergo reduction, and these NADPH molecules undergo oxidation. Means these NADPH molecules will donate the hydrogens to the precursors of fatty acids and steroid synthesis mechanism. Okay, so those precursors will undergo reduction while this NADPH molecule will undergo oxidation. So hence these concentrations, or you can say this HMP shunt will be active in the tissues which are concerned with the lipogenesis, means synthesis of lipids. These fatty acids and steroids are a part of lipids itself. Okay, so hence whatever the tissues that are employing the synthesis of these lipids, in such tissues this HMP is highly active. Tissues like adipose tissues and liver. Liver is also important site for synthesis of lipids. Now, second importance of this NADPH is it will help in reduction of this hydrogen peroxide. Now, these H2O2 molecules are rapidly being synthesized in the body. Okay, because of reduction of these oxygen molecules. Whenever oxygen molecules undergo reduction, they will lead either water or they may also get converted into reactive species like hydrogen peroxide. Now, these hydrogen peroxide undergo again splitting into formation of hydroxide free radicals, oxygen free radicals, depending on the splitting patterns. So now these free radicals, whatever are obtained from these hydrogen peroxide, will tend to degrade the cells, or they will damage the cells by damaging DNA, proteins and lipids. These hydrogen molecules these hydrogen peroxide, the action of this hydrogen peroxide must be encountered. So now these hydrogen peroxide undergoes oxidation, that is removal of hydrogen molecules with the help of this NADPH. So now these hydrogen molecules are tried to become, or the action of these hydrogen molecules is tried to counteracted with the help of this NADPH molecule. So important role is they will help in biosynthesis of fatty acids and steroids. Also, they will help to counteract the action of hydrogen peroxide. Other importance is the glutathione. This is very important. Glutathione, it is in reduced state, it is present as GSH. Now, these glutathione molecules are present in the cell membranes. Whatever the cells are present, in those cell membranes, these glutathione molecules are should be present in order to maintain the cell integrity. We can say cell integrity such that cell remain in its intact form. Cell remains in the intact form. So these glutathione, what do they do? These glutathione molecules, they tend to reduce this hydrogen peroxides by oxidizing itself. They will get oxidized. These you can see in the image. These glutathione already they are present in the reduced form. Okay, now in the reduced form, they will react with the hydrogen peroxide what is being synthesized in the body. Now these hydrogen peroxide molecules will undergo conversion into H2O. Okay, resulting in oxidation of these glutathione molecules. Hydrogen peroxide will undergo reduction while these glutathione molecules will undergo oxidation. And this is facilitated with the help of enzyme glutathione peroxidase. Now, these oxidized molecules must be again converted back to reduced form. Okay, so now these oxidized molecules of glutathione must be converted back to the reduced form. Hence, NADPH will come into account. Okay, whenever these NADPH molecules are being come in contact with the oxidized state, these glutathione molecules will get reduced while these NADPH molecules will get oxidized to NAD+. So hence the major role of the NADPH is to maintain the reduced concentrations of glutathione in the body such that these hydrogen peroxides will get reduced. Hydrogen peroxides will get reduced and glutathione oxidized form is there. And now these glutathione oxidized is again converted back to reduced form utilizing NADPH. So in this way, this whole mechanism is being continuously being carried out in the body such that these glutathione reduced molecules must be present in order to maintain the cell integrity by reducing this hydrogen peroxide molecules. Another is microsomal cytochrome P450 system. So these P450 cytochromes, whatever the P450 enzymes are there, these are majorly responsible for carrying out metabolic processes in the body. Major metabolic processes are being carried out by utilizing these enzymes, that is cytochrome P450. Now these carry out oxidation of the compounds. Always metabolism, or you can say the catabolism, is being facilitated by carrying out the oxidation of the starting materials. Hence, this NADPH will tend to reduce these systems. Okay, so here you can see there is a P450 system brings about a detoxification of drugs, or you can say oxidation of these drugs and foreign compounds by hydroxylation reactions involving NADPH. So NADPH also plays important role in metabolic pathways, or also you can say in presence of detoxification of drugs. Next is synthesis of nitric oxide. So now these nitric oxide molecules are being synthesized within the body, and these are important in order to maintain vasodilations, means dilation of the arteries and veins. Whatever the arteries and veins are present, these must be kept always in the dilated condition. If they get constricted, then there is then the pressure on the heart increases. Right? If the nerves get constricted or the vessels get constricted, then a pressure on the heart increases. That tends to increase the blood pressure, that is hypertension. If these nitric oxide molecules are less in the body, then these veins and arteries will tend to constrict. Okay, under such condition, the pressure on the heart increases, hence resulting in either stroke or heart failure, and also increasing the blood pressure. So this nitric oxide concentration is very, very important in order to maintain vasodilation. Also, these nitric oxide concentrations are important in order to prevent platelet aggregations inside the body. Okay, so these platelet aggregation tend to result in the thrombus formation. Now, these thrombus formation, if they get accumulated in the veins, they will tend to again heart problems, that is heart failure, or they will also increase this heart blood pressure also. Okay. Now, thus the synthesis of nitric oxide is mediated by NADPH along with arginine and oxygen. So, whatever oxygen is being inhaled and whatever the arginine, this is an amino acid, along with the oxygen and amino acid, these NADPH molecules tend to synthesize nitric oxide from the endothelial layers of the cells. Okay, so now this nitric oxide is being synthesized in the endothelial layers of the cells. This nitric oxide is very important in order to maintain the vasodilation and also to prevent platelet aggregations into the blood cells, sorry, into the blood vessels. Okay, so next is phagocytosis. We are very well known that phagocytosis is engulfment of foreign particles and degradation of microenzymes by engulfing them. Now these phagocytosis, they require energy, right? For engulfment also energy is required. Hence the energy is supplied in the form of NADPH. Now here the role of NADPH is to supply the energy for phagocytosis process. Another role of NADPH is it tends to maintain the integrity of RBC membranes. Similarly, we had seen in case of this glutathione reduction. Similarly, here also glutathione reduction is very, very essential in order to maintain RBC membrane integrity. Or else what will happen? These glutathione in the oxidized form, they will tend to degrade the RBCs, leading to hemolysis. Okay, if this NADPH is not present, then glutathione will always be present in the oxidized form. Now, these oxidized glutathione molecules, they will tend to degrade the RBCs, or you can say they will tend to break the RBCs, and this will lead to hemolysis, that is breaking down of RBCs in large concentrations. So this should not be the case, and always the cell membrane, that is RBCs, must remain always in the intact form. Next, NADPH is also necessary in order to keep the ferrous ions Fe+2 of the hemoglobin in the reduced state. Means already they are present in the Fe+3. Whenever these NADPH molecules come in contact with Fe+3, they will tend to reduce this and results in the synthesis of ferrous ions. Now these ferrous ions are also important such that these ferric ions should not be present. This ferric ion is also known as methemoglobin. Okay, so these methemoglobin also tend to cause hemolysis. If the concentration of these ferric ions increases, they will also tend to cause hemolysis. This glutathione as well as ferric ions, these both will tend to cause hemolysis if they are not converted into reduced forms. So this is how NADPH is very important in order to maintain different roles. Like it will help in synthesis of fatty acids, it will help in reduction of this hydrogen peroxide via reduction of these glutathione molecules. They will help in detoxification of drugs and foreign compounds. Also, it will help in synthesis of nitric acid with the help of arginine and oxygen. Now, the role of nitric acid is to maintain vasodilations, and also it helps in prevention of platelet aggregations. Another role is it mediates as an energy donor, or you can say energy supplier for phagocytosis process. It helps in maintaining the RBC membrane integrity by reducing ferric ions, that is methemoglobin, as well as by reducing glutathione concentrations. Okay. So now coming to what is this Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. So this is an important genetic disorder that is associated with the HMP shunt. So whenever there is an alteration in the transketolase, so this was the enzyme you can see here. Okay, so here two transketolase enzymes are utilized for conversion of xylulose and ribose into 7 and 3, as well as xylulose and erythrose are converted into 6 and 3 members. So both of these utilizes transketolase enzymes. So now these transketolase enzyme, if there is any alteration because of this genetic disorder of the HMP shunt, there will be alteration in this transketolase activity. Hence, they will whatever the coenzyme, that is thiamine pyrophosphate, it will not attach to this transketolase enzyme. Whatever the thiamine phosphate must be attached to the transketolase in order to carry out effectively conversion of these reactions or facilitate the these reactions. That will not be possible because there is an alteration in this whole transketolase enzyme structure itself. So these enzymes get degraded, or you can say they get denaturated, such that the thiamine pyrophosphate will not attach to this, and whatever the conversion is required will not be carried out, and hence this HMP shunt will be not carried out. Indirectly, this will cause inhibition of this HMP shunt. So how can you identify that a person is suffering from this syndrome? So the symptoms include there will be mental disorders, also there will be a loss of memory, and there will be a partial paralysis being seen in such persons. And also you can confirm by identifying enzyme activity. You have to carry out some pathological tests such that you can get this trans ketolase, whether it is being denaturated or whether it is being affected by some of the reasons. Okay, so this is regarding today's HMP shunt.